picture this. You're in Chicago, turn of the 20th century. The air is thick with industrial smoke, and the brand new skyscrapers, well, they cast some very long shadows. Because this wasn't just a city with a crime problem. Oh no, crime was the city's biggest, most profitable business. And we are about to step right into that dark, dangerous world.
And hey, that's not me being dramatic. That's a direct quote from the source material. It's what everyone was saying, from the police chief down to the guy on the street. It honestly felt like an unstoppable flood, a rising tide of corruption and violence that was threatening to just swallow the city whole.
So you gotta understand, in this story, the city itself, it's kind of the main villain. It was a place where every corner held a new con, every dark alley was a potential threat. For the right price, justice could be bought, sold, or just made to vanish. The system wasn't just broken. It was built from the ground up to benefit a new, smarter kind of criminal.
And they had a name for this new criminal, the grafter. Now, a grafter wasn't your typical stick-up artist. They were way more insidious. Think of them as the white-collar criminals of their day. These leeches who attached themselves to public money and big companies, turning corruption into a fine art. The word got so famous it was a true American export. People knew what it meant on the streets of London and Paris without any translation.
But into this wicked city steps our hero. And he's not some caped crusader, not a tough guy detective with a trench coat and a big revolver. No, this was a detective with a very particular and very unusual set of skills. His name was Clifton Wooldridge, and his greatest weapon was transformation.
See, while other detectives are kicking down doors, Wooldridge was just walking right through them, totally unnoticed. He was a master of disguise, a human chameleon who could blend into any corner of the city's underworld. He knew that to catch a grafter, he had to think like one, look like one, and, yeah, even live among them.
And this just shows you his method perfectly. To get inside one particularly rough part of town, he became a hunched-over rag picker. I mean, look at the detail here. Worn overalls, a huge coat with papers stuffed inside to fake a hunchback, burnt cork to darken his skin and change his features. In about 10 minutes, a respected detective vanished, and in his place was a man that nobody would ever look at twice. The perfect cover.
And this was the terrifying reality of his job. While he was disguised as that rag picker, digging through trash for clues, he was literally sitting at the feet of the very criminals he was hunting. And when he got a little too close, one of them looks down at this supposedly harmless old man and delivers this chilling threat. This wasn't a performance with a safety net. This was life and death in a filthy alley.
But Wooldridge wasn't just chasing random crooks. He was taking down entire criminal operations. He went to war with one of the most notorious and clever scams in the entire city, the panel house racket.
So how did this work? Well, just imagine you're a traveler, new to Chicago. You get lured into what seems like a totally respectable boarding house. While you're distracted, maybe having a drink, a thief slides open a secret panel in the wall right behind you, or a hidden trapdoor in the floor, empties your pockets, your luggage, and just disappears without a sound. It was an incredibly effective scam that preyed on anyone who was vulnerable.
And who was running this whole network? 4 of the most infamous women in Chicago's criminal history. You had Emma Ford and her sister Pearl Smith, Mary White, and Flossie Moore. They weren't just thieves, they were the queens of the underworld. They were running a citywide operation that stole over $200,000. We're talking millions in today's money. They were the terror of the police, the terror of the courts. They seemed absolutely untouchable. Untouchable to everyone, that is, except Wooldridge. He didn't just mess with their operation. He patiently, systematically hunted every single one of them down. And this right here, this is the box score. Hard time in the penitentiary. One by one, the queens were dethroned. He brought their entire empire crashing down. But, beating criminals on the streets, that was one thing. The ultimate test for a guy like Wooldridge in a city like Chicago, it wasn't a knife in some alley. It was a test of his character. Could he resist the city's most powerful temptation, the bribe?
That test came during the Wildcat insurance investigation. And let me tell you, this was one of the cruelest scams imaginable. These guys were selling worthless insurance policies to the most desperate people in the city, factory workers, immigrants, families who had nothing, promising them a safety net that was just empty air. And the human cost, it was just devastating. This story, from Wooldridge's own book, is absolutely heartbreaking. A man loses everything he owns in a fire. He thinks he's protected, he has his policy, only to find out it's fake. He and his entire family, his wife and 6 kids, are left homeless, forced to live in a chicken coop. His life savings just gone. That is the human face of graft. That's what Wooldridge was fighting for.
The powerful men behind this scam knew Wooldridge was closing in, and they knew he couldn't be scared off, so they tried to buy him. They made him an offer, an absolutely astronomical sum for the time, a life-changing amount of money, $25,000, enough to retire on the spot and live like a king.
It was all laundered through an attorney, a clean, quiet transaction meant to buy his silence. All he had to do was look the other way, let the investigation just fade away. And the men who left families living in chicken coops, they just walk free. For the grafters, this was just the cost of doing business.
He refused. But of course, in a city like Chicago, this story doesn't end there. You don't just say no to that kind of power. The grafters, furious that he wouldn't play ball, used their influence to attack him. They filed fake charges against him to destroy his career and his reputation. They dragged him through a trial that lasted 19 grueling sessions. But in the end, the truth won out. Wooldridge was completely exonerated. He had faced the corrupt system itself and won, cementing his legend as the one detective in Chicago who could not be bought. So, what was the real, lasting impact of this one incorruptible man? Well, it was more than just a few big arrests. It was about fundamentally changing the landscape of crime in Chicago.
Because of his relentless work, that entire panel house racket, it just collapsed. The source material says their backbone was broken and, get this, they never recovered to resume business again. He didn't just put a dent in their business, he ended it. Permanently.
And that's really what this whole story boils down to, isn't it? It's a tale of contrasts, a battle for the soul of a city. On one side, you have a world just drowning in easy money and moral decay. And on the other, you have a single man driven by a relentless sense of duty and an integrity that could not be shaken. Which leaves us with one final question to think about. In a system that's so corrupt from top to bottom, was a man like Clifton Wooldridge just a fluke, an exception to the rule? Or was he proof that even in the darkest of places, one person with unwavering character isn't just an inspiration, but an absolute necessity?